Hello, hello, hello. JLR Investigates. Come on in. Sorry to have you all waiting. I actually set the time for 4:30 p.m. Eastern. And I see a lot of people waiting in the chat. So I apologize for that. Matthew Perry, the ketamine queen. We're going to talk a little bit about this particular case. It was shocking what we just heard the other day. Arrest made, multiple doctors, Matthew Perry's personal assistant. One person that piques my interest about this whole thing is the ketamine queen. There's two people that seem like they're not cooperating with this case, and three people who have made plea bargains and plea deals in this case. We're talking about the beloved actor Matthew Perry. Tragically lost his life October of last year. Was found in his hot tub at his home. And then an investigation launched because ketamine drugs were found in his system. And it seems like earlier this spring, that's when authorities zeroed in on this individual. She's known as the ketamine queen. And she got arrested March. And she was facing charges of meth charges. So she was a meth dealer. But she's known in the Hollywood circles. And apparently she provided Kenny, which was Matthew Perry's personal assistant for 25 years, large amounts of ketamine. It's what it seems like, folks. I'm trying to put the pieces together here. And then there's other people involved. An individual named Dr. Salvador, who provided needles and other type of doctors. It's quite a conspiracy. But TMZ has been releasing some new information. Apparently, folks, this is where it gets even more shocking to the core. Apparently, Matthew Perry met the ketamine queen while he was in rehab, which is terrifying because you're supposed to go to rehab to get rehab, and you're supposed to go and get help while you're in rehab. You're not to have predators there that take people at their most vulnerable time of their life and exploit and peddle drugs onto them. It's shocking. No, listen, the TMZ actually come out and said that he met the ketamine queen in rehab. And I'm going to play this clip. Shocking to the core. We're going to get more understanding of who the ketamine queen is. She is probably the ringleader of this whole entire operation, the way I see it.
And I think what's really important here, and I think Dr. Drew will co-sign on this, is that this is not just about Matthew Perry. There is a network of doctors and others who are funneling drugs to people with means. And the really shocking part is that a lot of these people meet in rehab. That Matthew Perry met the ketamine queen in a rehab facility along with Charlie Sheen's ex-wife, who also happened to be best friends with the guy who was the broker for the drug. She has not been charged or arrested, but she cooperated with authorities and actually led them to her then best friend, among others. So the fact that they all met in rehab, when you think about it, is really shocking.
Yeah.
Special circle of hell for people who take advantage of people while trying to get treated for mental illness and addiction. Doc, I hear where Harvey's coming from, but we almost never hear of drug dealers being charged with homicide unless they're pushing bad product, right? Then sometimes if they knew this was bad product and they did it anyway, sometimes, but it's pretty rare. What do you think should happen here and why?
This is essentially identical to the Michael Jackson situation.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that Michael Jackson was given propofol outside of a surgical suite or an intensive care unit was the most bizarre thing I'd ever heard. I had a similar reaction to what was going on with this ketamine that was being distributed to poor Matthew Perry. Even though, however, I don't believe the ketamine was the proximate cause of his death. I think it contributed, but it was the opiates and the benzodiazepines that were seen in his toxicology report that is always what causes people to stop breathing, decreases their respiratory drive, so when they go underwater, they don't wake up, they don't sputter, and the ketamine, of course, contributed. That doesn't make this, and somebody may use this as a defense in court, which is awful, because it doesn't make it any less outrageous that he was given these extraordinary amounts of a clearly dangerous drug, anesthetic levels of this drug.
All right, so we're going to get to the central question here, Harvey, or Drew, both of you weigh in on this. If you look at this prosecution, they are going to have to show that the doctors, the assistant, that they were part of what killed Perry on that day in that tub. The assistant has a problem, okay? The assistant has a problem, Harvey.
He pled
I don't know
guilty.
how the doctors do if you can't put them in the room giving him something that kills him.
Well, look, I think Drew is right that he didn't die specifically from ketamine. But the reality is, and Drew, I'm a juris doctor, not a medical doctor, so help me out here. But the ketamine, there was enough in his system to basically for a doctor to do general anesthesia in surgery. So what he ended up was just unconscious as a result, and then
Right.
just fell underneath the water and died. So there is, I think,
But
there's a
something
proximate
had to
cause here.
suppress his. Yeah, it's a proximate contributor for sure. But listen, the anesthetic levels. One of the reasons we use ketamine as an anesthetic is it doesn't interfere with respiration. But if you add things that do to it, that is why you stop breathing.
Who added them?
And again, to
Who
be
added
getting
them?
this medication out of a controlled environment, yeah, absolutely. Then getting this medicine outside of a controlled environment, it is at least negligent manslaughter. At least. I don't know if that's what they're going for. If they're going, I don't think it actually is a murder one. That they had some this was a customer. They didn't want him to die, but it's
Conrad
negligent
Murray
at a
was
level.
involuntary manslaughter. Conrad Murray was involuntary manslaughter.
Hey, Chris, can I make kind of a broader point
Harvey,
here?
I'm going to give you the last point. Go ahead.
You're right that Conrad Murray was involuntary manslaughter. I have a different take on that. Conrad Murray was the stooge who was the last straw in Michael Jackson's life. And this is kind of what I was getting at the beginning, that there is a network of doctors and others who are doing this to a lot of people. And in Michael Jackson's case, he was getting shot up with Demerol every single day. His body was not only weakened, it was destroyed. And the addiction was not on Conrad Murray, it was on a bunch of other doctors that gave Michael Jackson 19 aliases. My point being that this is a serious problem that tragically happened to Matthew Perry, but goes way beyond him.
Hey, thanks for watching. Go to joinNN.com.
Big problem. But you know what? They're talking about manslaughter. The thing about it is this is separate from Conrad Murray. That was a state charge. This is a federal charge. They're charged with 841 drug charges, right? And you heard the prosecutor, the federal U.S. attorney for the Central District of California at that press conference. Some of them face life in prison. So they're not charged with murder. However, the federal sentencing guidelines and giving drugs to someone that results then in death enhances the point system, and they face up to life in prison. So they're not charged with manslaughter. She's charged with one of the worst. Matter of fact, her charges are so bad, she was already out on bond on her prior charges in the springtime, and the judge revoked her bond, the ketamine queen. The ketamine queen, I think, is the ringleader of this whole entire operation. I feel like she was responsible for distributing all types of drugs to Hollywood insiders and people, celebs, and all over the place. And she was flaunting it, more or less. Flaunting her, what she was doing to people. So let's get some more information about the ketamine queen. Insider Edition has some good stuff on her. A new report on her talking about all her lavish lifestyle, her jewelry and her Prada bags and all that stuff that she has. The ketamine queen. We got to listen a little bit and learn more about the ketamine queen. Will she cooperate and flip on others for a reduced sentence? She's facing life. She has nothing to lose at this point. She must cooperate if she wants to get any type of leniency, because pleading guilty alone is not going to cut it for her. And the feds do that with large drug dealers, cartels and whatnot. Sometimes those big-time drug dealers will get reduced sentence, maybe a life sentence turned into 20 to 30 years in that range. She's definitely going to prison for a couple decades. Reduced sentence in order to cooperate with others.
The indictment of 2 doctors and 3 other suspects in connection with the death of actor Matthew Perry has exposed what prosecutors are calling an underground drug ring in Los Angeles. And a lot of attention is focused on the woman being dubbed the Queen of Ketamine and her lavish lifestyle. Jim Murray has the latest.
We're learning more about the so-called Queen of Ketamine's lavish lifestyle before her arrest in connection with Matthew Perry's death. The accused drug dealer posted videos, partying it up at dance clubs, showing off designer clothes and bling. There she is next to a $200,000 Maybach at her birthday party, which was pimp-themed. The party was held 6 days before Matthew Perry's drug overdose last October. 2 weeks later, she was off to Japan, indulging in shopping sprees. Her high-end lifestyle also included private jets, vacations at oceanfront resorts, and posing with celebrities like Charlie Sheen in 2022. Prosecutors say Jasveen Sangha's extravagant lifestyle was funded by selling drugs to the rich and famous. Law enforcement says they confiscated 50 bags of narcotics here at her North Hollywood apartment, which they're calling her stash house. Prosecutors allege 2 weeks before he died, Sangha sold the Friend star 50 vials of ketamine for $11,000, boasting, "The drugs are amazing. He can try it, and I have more if he likes." We're also learning more about Matthew Perry's live-in assistant, Kenneth Iwamasa. Prosecutors say he injected the actor with at least 27 shots of ketamine in the 5 days leading up to his death. On the day of Perry's fatal overdose in his hot tub, prosecutors say Iwamasa injected Perry 3 times. As he was being given the final and lethal dose, Perry told him, "Shoot me up with a big one." 2 doctors are also being named in the indictment. Dr. Mark Chavez has agreed to plead guilty to 1 count of conspiracy to distribute ketamine. Dr. Salvador Plasencia is accused of supplying Perry with 20 vials of ketamine for $55,000 and has pleaded not guilty. He's the doctor who allegedly called Perry a moron. I spoke with his attorney, Stephen Sachs. The prosecutor is claiming that your client charged Matthew Perry $55,000 for what amounted to hundreds of dollars in ketamine, and that one of his text messages reportedly said something like, "Let's see how much this moron will pay."
If the text message is true, while it certainly is insensitive, it's definitely not criminal.
The lawyer says his client stopped treating Matthew Perry 2 weeks before he died.
Wow, folks. Think about that. The ketamine queen now in some big trouble. And she's like a party girl. I'm looking at my screen here to get more info on her. She's like the party girl of Hollywood. The ketamine queen. She's facing a long time. Now, I want to share something with you, because the way the CNN is reporting this, there's 5 co-defendants. And in reference to the co-defendants, here's what we know. Okay, so they're saying, when announcing the charges on Thursday, Estrada said investigators believe Perry fell back into addiction and noted Perry's vulnerability as a recovering addict. Estrada alleged that Plasencia worked with Dr. Chavez to supply Perry with the ketamine. With Perry's assistant, Kenny, would inject the actor with, despite having no medical training. Chavez, one of the doctors, he's 54 years old from San Diego, has agreed to plead guilty to 1 count of conspiracy to distribute ketamine. So we got 1 cooperator, 1 person. He's cooperating. Trust me. Didn't say he's cooperating, but he's cooperating. So you got 1 person, Dr. Chavez. Then you got Kenny Iwamasa, 59 years old, from California. He pled guilty August 7th to 1 count of conspiracy to distribute ketamine causing death. Now, Kenny's in some big trouble, because Kenny, I actually said that, Kenny probably is the most person with the most damage in this situation, because Kenny, technically, he's the one that injected the drug. Kenny right here. He's the one that injected the drug into Perry. So technically, what we know is Perry, most drug users are in a sense, it's hard for a prosecutor to charge a drug dealer with a death, right? But in this particular case, most drug dealers get the drugs from someone and then they inject themselves, right? Or put the drugs, they take the drugs themselves. So they're a willing participant, the person. So it's very hard to get a prosecution out of someone giving someone drugs and they take the drugs, right? But in this particular case, it's different because Kenny himself injected it. So Kenny put the drugs in him. That's why he's in some big, big trouble. Now, that's going to be factoring at sentencing, right? You could arguably call Kenny a killer. You could say Kenny is a killer because Kenny's the one that put it in. But he decided to plead guilty. He admitted to performing multiple injections on Perry on October 28, 2023, the day Perry died. So he's probably going to testify against the ketamine queen and the other one, Dr. Salvador, because Dr. Salvador and the ketamine queen are the only two that haven't pled guilty. Erik Fleming, who we don't know much about, from Hawthorne, California, has pled guilty to 1 count of conspiracy to distribute ketamine and 1 count of distribution of ketamine resulting in death. Fleming said in court documents that he distributed ketamine to kill Perry, which Fleming said he obtained from Sangha, her, ketamine queen. Ketamine queen and the other doctor are the two doctors, or the two individuals, and the ketamine queen's not a doctor. She's just a person that gets all these drugs and everything like that. She's using her looks and flaunting herself and soliciting the pitch and everything like that to seduce, we'll say, Hollywood actors into buying her product. People that are struggling, people that are under addiction, people at their most rock bottom, and she's taking advantage of their situation. It's horrible. She's probably going to get light unless she cooperates, unless there's others that we don't know about, because as we heard from Harvey Levin and Dr. Drew, there is a bigger network. I think this is just scratching the surface about these underground doctors and underground people that are peddling drugs to people. Scary stuff. There's another clip on the ketamine queen. We'll try to get all. I'm giving you guys all the information on. This is like a depot of all information on the ketamine queen and everything out there on her.
When the feds announced charges against 5 people in the death last fall of Matthew Perry, we learned a lot more than just names and alleged offenses. We learned, for instance, that on the day that Perry died, the actor's personal assistant admits giving him 3 separate injections of ketamine, a hospital-grade anesthetic. The last dose came after Perry allegedly told Kenneth Iwamasa to, quote, shoot me with the big one. Perry was found dead in his hot tub a short time later of a ketamine overdose. 3 of the 5 people charged in connection with his death have already pleaded guilty to federal charges. They include Perry's assistant, Iwamasa, who bought the ketamine and administered it despite a complete and total lack of any medical training. It's just mind-boggling. Erik Fleming, who admitted distributing the ketamine that killed Perry, and Dr. Mark Chavez, who says he sold the ketamine to another doctor. 2 other defendants. The prosecution's main targets are Dr. Salvador Plasencia, who allegedly bought the ketamine from Chavez, and Jasveen Sangha, an alleged celebrity drug dealer dubbed the ketamine queen. Plasencia is out on a $100,000 bond, and Sangha is being held without bond. I want to bring in my pal, Jesse Weber. He's an attorney, a News Nation legal contributor, and an anchor on the Law and Crime Network, and just a fashionista.
Oh, I got
Can I give you a hug?
You can.
Look who's
You're doing a great job.
Well,
you're doing a great job.
Thank you. Look who's interviewing who. Look who's interviewing.
I know how the tables have turned.
Exactly. All right, look. According to court documents, Perry's personal assistant says Perry asked him to shoot me up with a big one. I mean, Perry has been struggling with addiction for so many years, right? Does it really matter that Perry was asking for injections?
Okay, so a couple of things about that. Do we know that for sure? It came from Iwamasa, right? So we don't know that for sure. Now, here's the thing. I've been asked this question for the past 24 hours. What is Matthew Perry's role in it? Matthew Perry tragically suffered from addiction. The sad part about this is if he lived and this was caught by investigators, he probably would have been charged as well.
Ooh.
That doesn't negate what anybody else did here. And, you know, I've been hearing this a lot, that Iwamasa, his assistant, right, he knew that he was going to be fired. He was just doing what Matthew Perry ordered him to do. But at the same time, he's an adult. And it wasn't like he just dropped off drugs and walked away. He was getting instructions from one of the main defendants, the doctor, on how to inject Matthew Perry. Injected him multiple times on the day that he died. So even though Matthew Perry wanted this and directed this, this was a guy who was suffering. And I think that has to be accounted for.
Right, and he's also, you know, well, we'll get to this. He's a trigger man, right, because he was administering the injections. But he's also the guy who knows everything and everyone. He's at the crux of this case. He's the prosecution's main witness. He's clearly flipped. I believe this is already out there.
Potentially 15 years in prison.
Right.
No, he's getting longer than that.
You know, I do a lot of these cases in the same court, Central District of California, these drug distribution cases. And, you know, it's a mandatory minimum of 20 years to life.
Right.
And so everyone flips, right? And that's how drug conspiracies work. You flip your way up to the top, to the main target. And so my question to you is, given the prosecutors work their way up, do you think that Sangha, what is it? The Ketamine Queen. By the way, I'm in LA. I'm in this drug world, and she's no El Chapo. Okay, no one's ever heard of the Ketamine Queen.
They said she had this drug emporium of multiple vials, and she had all methamphetamine.
But my point is, the DOJ is just like, they go with the salacious buzzword, and they've named her the ketamine. Anyway, do you think that now Sangha and Dr. Plasencia in this indictment, do you think they'll flip also?
Yeah.
You mean, do I think they're going to take deals?
Yeah, right.
I think there is
cooperate.
I think that there is a strong incentive for them to do that when they're looking at potentially life in prison. And look, can the doctor, let's focus on Dr. Plasencia, soon to be, maybe not doctor anymore. Are there arguments?
Dealer in a
lab. Are there arguments that he can make? Sure. You know, I believe his defense attorney came out that Matthew Perry was struggling. He was taking ketamine. I didn't supply him the drugs that actually turned out to be fatal. You know, they could say he had a legitimate medical reason, but when you read the text messages and they're using coded language, and
Thanks for watching. Go to join.
It's pretty good. Pretty good. They actually cut off. I don't know why they did that. But yeah, I think the Ketamine Queen is the ringleader of this. I do think that she's on the, you know, the big drug dealer type of level there, the Pablo Escobar type level, on the Hollywood level. On the Hollywood level, it seems like she, in the last couple years, just based off looking at her social media accounts that are gone, by the way, I haven't found them, or they're either private or I haven't found them, new ones. She's just flaunting everything. She's all going on these lavish trips. She's all over the place. She's partying, she's mingling with these Hollywood people and everything like that. It's very, very scary of who else was a victim. How many other people? Now, they talked about a 219 death before. Like, someone else died of the results of drugs and everything like that. So, it's definitely, you know... But one thing Jesse just said there was, if Matthew Perry was alive, he would have been charged too. What's your take on that? He said he would have been charged too, like as if this was like a ongoing some sort of drug conspiracy. But I really think they came at these people specifically for the Matthew Perry case. They went at Ketamine Queen first on those unrelated drug charges for the meth in the springtime and escalated that and built a case on her from that point. Bringing Magnolia in the chat. Magnolia, how are you?
Hello.
Hello. So the latest news that Matthew Perry met the Ketamine Queen in rehab.
Mm-hmm.
Thoughts?
Yeah. Well, it's just, you know, it's kind of sad that he met, you know, someone who would in the future end up having a part in killing him, you know? That's pretty sad. So, I mean, for me, I'm not, you know, I don't know if he had a friendship with her or some type, you know,
well,
what was she
doing in rehab? Because there's 2 reports saying that she was in rehab or something. Is she there to pretend she has an issue to peddle the drugs onto people? Is that one of our schemes to maybe and check herself into rehabs in these Hollywood, expensive rehabs where these Hollywood actors go and then solicit her pitch on them?
I mean, I would hate if that was true. It's possible
like a scam.
It's possible though that she developed her own addiction in the course of selling the drugs. She also, they said that she actually cooked ketamine herself. She made it herself. I don't know if she had meth there too. I don't know if she made that herself too, but
she was involved in fentanyl too. Fentanyl, I read charging documents. Fentanyl was part of it too.
Yeah, so she was very serious into it. A cook. So, now what I was going to say though, I don't know if he was a friend of, like if they had a friendship or if it was just a situation where they met in rehab and they were acquaintances. Because, the drugs that were purchased leading up to his death, those were bought basically by Kenny and this, so Kenny was going to these different doctors to get the ketamine, but the doctors couldn't keep up with the demand that Matthew was asking for. And, he was paying it was $55,000 that he paid for ketamine. I think they said in the final month of his life, just an exorbitant amount of money. And
for how much of it though? Just like one per day for like a week, or I mean, it's like 1,000 a shot.
It's just like multiple vials, constantly, and so the doctors weren't able to keep up with his desire, so Kenny had to go elsewhere. So that's how Erik Fleming and
Chavez.
ketamine queen got into the mix, because the doctor wasn't able to keep up, so they had to find a supplier, and so that's how she came into the picture. So what I'm saying is, I don't think that Matthew reached out to Ketamine Queen and bought drugs from her. It was all being done with his assistant and these intermediaries that were doing it. And what I have to say, I guess the Ketamine Queen, she's probably facing a ton of time in prison.
Life.
To me, she's like a common drug dealer, whatever she is. I'm more concerned with the people that were close to Matthew. That's what I'm more concerned about.
Like, who do you mean?
I'm talking about Kenny, for example, and the doctor that treated him. I mean, they know his history. They know what his body has been through. They know what these drugs can do. Not only that, he OD'd 16 days before he actually died. So that's a little known thing that people don't really talk about, but it came out in the Daily Mail a couple days ago that he actually OD'd. He froze up. He had a seizure, and he OD'd 16 days before his death. And this happened with Kenny, that was giving him the injections from the doctor. And the doctor was like, Kenny, let's not do that again. But then he gave him more vials of ketamine for Matthew.
Yeah.
So I just, to me, it's how could these people do this? I mean, I understand that Matthew he's an addict. It seems like he was out of control, and he's asking for these things. And instead of telling him, no, this can kill you. No, we shouldn't do that. No, I can't prescribe that to you. No, I can't inject you with that. No, it's too soon since the last one. No, that's too big of a dose. How come no one ever said that? The people that are close to him, the people...
Well, they're scared they're going to be fired, or the gravy train ends for them.
Yeah, so guess what? His last assistant, what I've heard, what I've gathered, the reason she was let go is because she did say no, because she did stand up to him. Okay, so what? He fires you. Well, I mean, maybe that's for the best,
Mm-hmm.
think that it's to me it's just insane. And this guy Kenny has been working with him for like 25 years. How are you going to be that close with someone for that amount of time and do things that you know could kill them, like literally could kill them? It wasn't just the overdose on that was 16 days prior. There was also another overdose within the last month before he died. So he actually overdosed twice on ketamine leading up to the night that he actually died. So Kenny had reasonable belief and knowledge that his actions could cause Matthew's death, and he just kept doing it. So to me, that I'm far more concerned with that, and I think that should hold a whole lot more weight as far as the charges go. And I understand that he pleaded guilty to his charge, but I just think in his case there should be way more accountability. And I would even place him worse than Conrad Murray. Conrad Murray was only with Michael for a short time because Michael doctor shopped and he would change his doctors all the time. Conrad really, it wasn't like, he was close to Michael like that. I mean, this guy's with him 25 years and he's doing these things to him and literally kills him. I feel like more accountability. I feel like he should have been more severely charged in this. I'm kind of like...
One thing I see interesting about Kenny is, okay, so this happened just the other day, this arrest, right? This indictment, or these indictments and the arrests, right? But the way they're saying it in court documents, now this case was unsealed, I guess been grand jury indicted a while ago, because they're saying he pled guilty August 7th on this matter. August 7th, no one, this wasn't even out yet.
Right.
So there must have been some secret grand jury indictment that was sealed, and then they offered certain cooperators an opportunity to plead guilty, and then once they pled guilty, then eventually they unsealed the indictment and made the following arrest. But it seems like he was already involved. It's quite possible that Kenny even went in front of a grand jury and testified.
Yeah, so I mean, if we look at it from the law enforcement perspective, they're gonna want quote unquote the big fish. Mm-hmm. That's what they're looking for. In their mind, the big fish is Ketamine Queen and her partners and the
Salvador Plasencia.
Right, and the people in that network. So in the eyes of law enforcement, they're the big fish because they are running a full blown drug ring, illegal, and it seems to be massive. And apparently they came across a lot of different celebrities that are a part of all of this. And so, from the law enforcement perspective, that's what they want. So somebody like Kenny, who probably, I hope, feels a lot of remorse for what he did.
I mean, it's his personal assistant.
Potentially, it could be for Kenny an act of atonement to say, I'll do anything to help you bring people to justice, and I'll do anything kind of thing. So that could have been the way it went down. But, for me, I do think, I get it that they wanted these bigger fish and maybe Kenny helped, but I think a manslaughter charge here was warranted, right? Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, it's not I don't think they have just manslaughter on a federal level charge itself. This is all under the 841 drug charges, the title, for drug charges. And again, dealing drugs resulting in death, which he pled guilty to. One count of conspiracy to distribute ketamine and one count of distribution of ketamine resulting in death. The resulting in death has minimum mandatories on the federal sentencing guidelines or enhancements. Now, obviously, if first-time offender judge can go below the guidelines, above the guidelines. Not much, though. They can do a downward departure, a downward variance. They can also do an upward variance. But it seems to me that he's facing right now on just those two charges, even without a criminal record, 20 years.
Yeah, he's facing about 20 years. But then if you look at Ketamine Queen, she's facing life.
Yeah, she's done. I mean, literally, the only way Ketamine Queen gets a 25 piece is if she cooperates. Other than that, she's life. I mean, she's literally ketamine queen because of this, because of the high profile case. Ketamine queen is 480 months to life, in that range, 40 years plus. If she cooperates, they might offer her a 25-year piece. Remember, there's no parole in the federal system. They serve 85% of their time. And, she's going away for a long, long time. There's no, and she feels like she can beat the case. It's ridiculous because you got 5 people in a conspiracy, right? Conspiracies never go well. And the federal government likes to use people part of the conspiracy to flip on others. They already have a 97-something% conviction rate as it is. You're not beating a federal trial. You're just not in a conspiracy. You're just not. The odds are extremely against her just on that alone.
Yeah, I think so too. I don't really see them getting, I don't think any of them will end up getting a break here.
No, I don't either. No slaps on the wrist here. Maybe the low end of the totem pole person might get a 10-piece. I don't see any of them getting under 10 years. Nope.
No, yeah.
Nope. So, anything else you would like to add about the ketamine queen?
No, I mean, I guess she's locked up right now, no bond. They revoked. So she was, in case people missed that, she was arrested back in the spring, in April, on drug charges, and she was given a bond, but since these new charges came out, her bond was revoked, so she's locked up now. Probably not getting out, right? No,
she ain't. They're not going to let her out. No way. I mean, you're already indicted, and you get indicted again while indicted. Come on.
Right.
No, I mean, she can ask, but she's not going to get it. Not going to get it. All right, folks. Well, we'll keep everyone informed. We just wanted to share awareness and bring awareness to the ketamine queen. A little bit of backstory and history on her. Seems like she has multiple passports, British passport, they said, so definitely a flight risk. Where'd she come from? We'll try to do a deeper dive into her, and then anything that we uncover about this case, we'll share with all of you. Also, if anyone else gets indicted, or if there's other doctors involved, we will expose the doctors too, for sure. Appreciate it. Magnolia might have dropped off the chat. So JLR investigates. Time for me to go too. Keep tuned and praying for the family of Matthew Perry. I think it's much bigger than it is. And I think we're only scratching the surface on this network of drug dealing going on in Los Angeles with Hollywood celebs and doctors involved. What other doctors are going to be arrested? Doctors should be put on notice. Stop what you're doing. You better stop. And if you know something, you better cooperate, because the feds come for you. It is over for you and your career ending. We'll talk soon. Thanks for watching JLR Investigates. We cover true crime 24/7, 365. Have a good day, everyone. We'll talk soon.